we might be able to like kind of get it to.
Might be able to jiggle it and get it out.
Yeah, be able to jiggle it, and then after that, the other one, you could try the knife method.
Tell me how long it's long anyway.
You have a paper link to get
Is there a type of pen that goes around that?
That's what I was thinking.
It would make sense to have on this versus at my house.
You might not like what you're going to find out. You said you bought the house 20 years ago and you built it.
We don't know how that. Sorry, we're stooges or geniuses.
She has very private conservative. Before you start spending money on getting a survey, maybe he has a survey. So,
There's a sign on the door saying the jury trial was canceled for tonight.
There's a sign on the door that says the jury trial is canceled.
that could be it, yeah.
Actually, night court's Wednesday.
So there's probably jurors coming in and then see that sign for the first time.
All right, what I would do is, you know what? I would probably say it shows up and I would just make sure. Yeah.
No. I mean, as recently, just before COVID, we didn't televise these.
Well, we got the pins out. I don't know if it made the situation any better or worse.
Do they not? Yeah, they don't.
This is a pretty cool toolbox, isn't this?
So it is, yeah.
Did you realize?
They don't slide past it.
Worked out what I was. Amber Cove through Dominican Republic. I take it Jen started today?
your time.
This is old school.
Hey, don't put your coat there, people think he's fine.
I know, the junk you approach.
You're more stylish than me.
Yeah, just snap them and
You don't think I'm smart?
You getting there?
Getting there, you just.
Good, how are you?
I
Sorry about that meeting.
don't worry about it, because I know that we get these passed.
So the only question I had on the back side of the automatic hinge thing.
Hey,
Got it.
I don't think so.
Thanks, Chief.
Pat, you need a flat one?
No, I meant like the door closer.
Oh, closer, is there a closer on the inside of that?
Yeah, the closer on the inside of the automatic closer.
No.
should we do two screwdrivers at the same time?
Are you filming us trying to break in? I mean, it's entertaining.
Where have they been for the last 20 years?
I hope you don't stay close. It's back up.
you have any spare batteries? Okay.
Computers are gonna get us eventually. Batteries.
Sayonara.
Hey, thank you.
That is a huge change.
Mary's.
That's pretty new.
What?
An option.
Oh, maybe. No, they're only here for the door, I think.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah, don't leave your tool.
so this is gonna start.
All I can tell you is I'm just here with
The hinges are in there.
18 discussed.
That's when they changed.
It's not my area of expertise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe not my, promise. All right, thanks.
This would be a huge improvement.
No doubt.
Can't be lost clothes, you guys are great.
Man has a.
Were they running for you?
So we're giving rise to
Well, they also. It's fun, yeah. Very obvious. Well, here you're. We wanted DC, someone to read that. Any of it. So that's okay, because in a lot of ways, they have
Yeah, all of a sudden you have this.
more first, once those tests are ready. Doyle.
Okay. It was a great line. She's saying we're not doing that.
Yeah, and that's why I said, hey, I looked at the amendment on this time. To me, it looks like you're saying we're going past the January 18th. And
If we're all in agreement, the court's not going to start that choice. That was pretty clear. Everybody,
but, yeah, so it was a good day.
Okay, so you can go ahead. Yeah,
Huh?
we'll just be on the channel, not anything else, but at least you got one go.
Okay, I think it's great. You tell us when we should start,
You can go ahead, because I can't close my door.
oh, okay, oh, he's got a lot of nerve. Go?
Yep.
All right,
I'll talk to you later.
what do we got? It's 5:37. We're gonna start the Thursday, January 26th 2023 Webster Town Board workshop. We've had some fun here, some technical difficulties, I'd say, so I'm sorry we're 7 minutes late on this, but we have 2 agenda items tonight. And the first one is a presentation on the concept of the town road speed limit change to 25 miles per hour maximum in residential neighborhoods. And we have 2 presenters on that tonight. We have Pat Stevens, our highway superintendent, and Chief Dennis Kohlmeyer from the police department. So, I have a few minutes.
Very good. I'll start it off, Tom. Thanks. So the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in towns issue kind of has become more of a topic with some legislation that was passed in January 2021. There was a bill passed and they changed some of the language in it. And basically how it reads is, instead it used to say the least limit you can have without doing a special assessment was 30 miles an hour. They scratched that and put 25. So there's some legislation that leaves it more open to making a change. What it does not do is change how each individual city, village, or town changes the speed limit. So the process for changing a speed limit is the same. Certain towns, based on their size, have a different process to do that. That remains intact. It's just allowable to go down to 25 now on more of a large scale. So there's been some information passed forward to me through the highway superintendents and different things like that, different sites to look at it. There was one town, which is quite a lot smaller than Webster, who is currently pursuing it. I found out today that they're only pursuing it for a small portion of the town, one area where they feel they have an issue. And there's a few things that go along with that. So that's sort of where I think some of the possibility of this comes along for the board members to consider. And one of the things that goes with that is a traffic study. So we do have town roads in the town of Webster that are posted at 25 miles per hour, but those have had a special study of some sort done on them to establish them that way, and they get brought into code via town law to be 25 instead of 30, which is townwide.
Pat, what was the section of law? Is it vehicle traffic, town law, highway law?
Yeah, it's New York State Highway. I believe it's in the 1600s, 1620 maybe, is the traffic law that speaks to 1622 vehicle traffic laws relates to how towns and villages have to establish speed limits within their town based on their size and their category. That's the section that they're referring to. The town that I spoke to, they are pursuing it for one area, so they do have an engineering firm on board to do a traffic study for that specific area. Feasibly for us, so that's the topic. When you start to get into the logistics of some of the things that would go along with this, that would be one. You'd have to look into a traffic study of some kind. Because nobody has done it yet, I don't know if it's each individual street, which we have a lot of, over 120 miles of, and in various different streets. I don't know if it's on a granular basis, or if you can do more of a widespread analysis to determine if you can, wholesale go down to 25. But there is some level of engineering that would have to be brought on. Beyond that, for me, as the entity that maintains the signs in town, that would be a significant thing to consider. So every speed limit sign that currently says 30, that's on a town road, not county state, but on a town road, would have to be switched if we did go through the process that's already established to change the speed limit. I don't have an exact count on those, but again, there's probably a significant number. So that would be time and material for what could be hundreds of signs throughout the town. Would have a significant cost. We haven't got to the point of quantifying any of that because we're still just discussing it, and obviously the board is considering it. But those would be the 2 biggest impacts to us, is you have an entire sign set that would have to be changed out, which obviously isn't carried in any budgetary lines currently for this year, and that type of thing. So there'd be a significant undertaking there. Other impacts about town or fall into the chief's area, so I'll talk to him for his thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. And generally speaking, I guess I want to preface everything with the goal of any enforcement strategy is voluntary compliance. That is what we're trying to achieve. It's impossible to enforce and cite people into compliance. We can't be everywhere all the time, and like Pat said, the amount of town roads we have in the jurisdiction, it's difficult to be where everybody sees an issue or a concern. That being said, it doesn't really change our enforcement strategy. It doesn't really matter what the speed limit is as to how we address what the problem is. We typically receive traffic complaints on a regular basis. Again, resource allocation is a primary concern for a town police department, making sure we have our resources in the best place possible. So one of the first things we do when we get the complaint is try to establish contact with the person to get specific information. If it's more of a general complaint, we have a speed study that we can do. It's not the same level Pat was talking about from a certified traffic engineering study, but allows us to get more granular detail as far as the type of volume we have of traffic and then the type of speed we have on that traffic. So it allows us to create a more targeted enforcement plan to try to address it. Then once that happens, we'll try to follow up with the complaint to make sure that we're seeing reduction or impact with the resources. But generally speaking, reducing the speed limit to 25 from 30 isn't going to affect the enforcement side of it. Aside from enforcement, one of the things we try to do is improve education. So the benefit of reducing the speed limit is the people that do pay attention and willfully comply will generally reduce their speed to comply with the lower limit. There are certain locations in town where we've used enhanced speed signs that will gather the speed of the vehicle and flash it to educate the person. And that's shown to have some impact in bringing the unaware people into aware and have them voluntarily comply. It's never going to address the people that are willfully disregarding the speed limit. So I guess I just want to put that out there from an enforcement perspective.
Thanks, Chief. I think you guys, that's the gist of this. And I should have prefaced this, but we had a lot of things going on here leading up to starting this. You know, we've been doing these presentations the last year or so with some PowerPoints and whatever. I'm sure Karen is very happy that we don't have a PowerPoint tonight based on the technical difficulties. But it's funny, when we sat down in the last couple of weeks to put a PowerPoint together on this, we almost didn't really know where to start because it's such a technical thing. So we thought it was just better to have Pat and Chief kind of just give that narrative that they did very succinctly to learn from them. And then just kind of have the board members, Charlie, any questions you had, or thoughts, comments on this?
I'd have to look at the law, obviously, and then I can advise the board.
Yeah.
Did Pittsburgh just do this?
If they did, they could reach out to any other towns. I hadn't seen anything on anybody actually doing it and completing it, so I'm not aware of any activity there.
I thought I had seen something that their board had passed a resolution to this effect. They may not have enacted it yet. Maybe they're still going through that, but I thought that they were looking at this. And there's been a lot, you did provide a lot of information in advance of this with some other emails, and I appreciate that. What I found interesting is that we already do have, and my goodness, we all get these calls about people who are complaining about speeding, and I saw it on social media again today. The whole thing, people are always speeding on my street, and then was the whole issue of enforcement, of course. What good is it if you don't enforce it, that sort of discussion. And what I found interesting in what you had said earlier was that there are many streets already in town, especially in some of the residential areas and the tract type developments, that are already posted at 25. Supervisor, you had said that there's some inconsistency even in your own neighborhood.
The nice thing about even having this conceptually as a discussion, I've learned some things in the last couple of weeks from Pat's research, and I wondered because I think, Bill, are you the longest tenured board member?
Yes.
Do you recall, like, a resolution that this particular street is now being switched from 30 to 25?
We have previously done that on numerous streets since I've been on the town board. We have a public hearing on it, residents can come in and speak,
Yeah.
and that's how it went through.
Yeah, and then,
Each individual street.
it's funny because just as recently as yesterday, and that's where Pat, I don't want to tell you better, is that we're in the infancy stage of researching, well, how does that happen? Like, is there a certain process within the law of how does the street get together and 51% of them say, well, we don't know, because the last one that happened was a long time ago. So we haven't gone and researched the minutes.
It happened in my neighborhood, my street.
It happened in one of the streets in my neighborhood.
And that's exactly what happened. There was a bunch of people showed up and asked them to be lowered to 25.
Yeah, from what I've seen from that point, there has to be some kind of study done. I don't know if that was done internally with town staff, if we reach out to consultants, or what was done ahead of time. Then you end up at a board resolution, and then some of the information Tom and I looked at actually resides in our code, and it was interesting in there. We saw some situations where something was done, and then it seemed like within the near future, it was actually undone. There was some back and forth on some of these situations, which we're still looking into to see
Yeah.
what was going on there. If there was some kind of problem with the change, or if something wasn't done in a certain way, we're not exactly sure, but there's your neighborhood again.
Yeah,
Had some of that.
And when you say within a certain period of time it was repealed,
Yeah,
we're talking like 3 months, like in October, the one I remember, October 97, some process must have happened that the board decided to lower the speed limit from 30 to 25 on a specific road. 3 months later, it was repealed and returned back to 30. We're still, well, how did that happen? What happened to get to the change to 25 and 3 months later?
Well, we can look at the minutes.
We're gonna, and
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
and that's why I said, we couldn't get a PowerPoint because all of a sudden as we started doing the research, it's a very tangled web. We thought it was best to just kind of conceptually talk about it. Some things I think that are very critical, in my opinion, and I know that Pat touched on it. And Chief, we get complaints, everybody's getting complaints about speed, okay? This concept of lowering the speed limit, these are more neighborhood roads. These are our town roads. The main arteries, for the most part, the Holt roads, the Clems, the hard roads, those are county and state roads. So that's a totally different, if people are thinking, oh, you're gonna lower the speed limit to 25 miles per hour on Holt and Hard, no. No, it's really, for the most part, in neighborhoods off of those arteries that we're talking about. And Chief, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know a lot of times speed changes in enforcement and data studies, you look at accident patterns. I'm going to guess that you don't have neighborhood roads that have a big accident pattern.
No, we don't.
No, I kind of guessed it. I know in town like Empire, because whatever, but, so that's going to work against the concept of lowering the speed limit. And to your point, I really think, even if we do lower from 30 to 25, that's not a magic pill where all of a sudden the world is better for everybody involved. There's an reaction to that where I don't want the citizens to have an unrealistic expectation that we're going to have, well, should we go and get, there's 120 miles of road, as you just said. How many police cars would you have to have positioned to cover all 120 miles of those roads so that when somebody does go 37 or 42 and a 25, you can take it?
Yeah, it's unrealistic, it's not gonna happen. From a global perspective, obviously pedestrian safety is a huge issue. But generally speaking, speed is a perception based on the individual's observations, and they're not always accurate. So the concept of neighborhood safety and reducing the speed obviously has merit to it, but it's not always a speed limit issue. Sometimes it's a distracted driver issue, sometimes it's traffic management with stop signs and yield signs and things like that as well. But from a global perspective, speed isn't always the issue, even though there's a lot of complaints about the perception of vehicles traveling.
I would also say that I think, while we do get complaints about people in the neighborhoods, I know that the chief, you and the whole force have been really very responsive to the public and reaching out to them and trying to see what kind of solution can be had, and at least gathering the information. But at least what I saw when I was out walking last fall, when I was campaigning again, is that the most egregious speeding is really on those main roads, and we wouldn't be able to change the speed limit on those. I think those are probably a little easier to enforce than the cul-de-sacs and all of the other residential areas, but you get out on Holt Road or County Line, or Phillips even, and people flying down there at 55 miles an hour. And I think that's one of our biggest concerns.
Yeah, and again, from a general point of view, most of the time the officers are doing speed enforcement, traffic enforcement generally, while they're responding to other things. Obviously, if they're going to an in-progress thing, they're not going to stop and enforce speed, but if they're going to a report or something like that, and they make an observation that they're going to take enforcement action on, that obviously is more likely to happen on a main road, because that's how we're going from call to call. Resource allocation is a big concern for us, especially right now with a high volume of larcenies, property crimes, things like that are taking our attention. That's an all-day everyday thing right now for us.
I don't want to, because I know that there's been a lot of changes in New York State since 2020 with bail reform is kind of the big one that everybody throws around. Bail reform didn't really affect traffic speeding enforcement.
Well, they're trying to get away from a crime scene, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Patty. I guess what I'm trying to say is with the chief's got his staff and cars and whatever. We haven't gone, and the action of bail reform has, as you described, Chief, it's a bit of a catch and release. The larcenies happen. You catch them, you can't put them in jail, bail, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get myself in trouble here. They get back out, they go and do it again. Your police force is dealing with that exponentially more so than they were in 19. Same force, same size, same cars. To think that we are going to be able to, in that set of facts, be able to, go after speeders in this nice, docile neighborhood that has cul-de-sac, it's not realistic. Yeah, it's not a, whatever, so. Anyway, Jenny, do you have any thoughts on this, or?
Well, I guess that, safety is the most important thing, in all lines, and whatever is the concept that we could come up with and try to help our community, I'm for it.
And that's really, because, Pat, I think we're gonna look at some other things, kind of look at, and we probably will come back to the board in a couple months with an update on this, maybe with a nice PowerPoint that's a little prettier. But like I said, we just wanted to kind of introduce the concept, and also in this conversation make sure that we set the record straight that it's not going to be, use, to me, the most egregious example. The northern end of 250, as you head toward Lake Road, turns into a 50 mile per hour. I don't know. I've been out walking neighborhoods over there while I was campaigning and when I was going for chip seal and whatever, just to talk to people. And people up that live off in the neighborhoods off of 250, they're like, Larry, what the freak is it 50 miles per hour up there for? I'm like, it's a state road. And Pat, I know we've met with the New York State Department of Transportation, local people on this. I don't know the process to have that speed limit reduced on a state road.
For the town, logistically, it's coordination. It's expressing the concerns, taking forth the information we're getting from residents and giving it to them and sort of letting them know there's these concerns. We share them, what can it be evaluated? But it's a coordination effort, actually have jurisdictional control.
So we figured we'd cut our teeth on town roads because unless the state gets involved with this, if it's within our purview of authority to do something, well, it'd be nice to know, because then we can have an intelligent, informed conversation. Should we do something? And what are the reactions of taking 120 miles of road in these neighborhoods that have been built, these tracks over the years, and reducing the speed limit on all the streets from 30 to 25? What is the reaction? That'll be a discussion for another day.
Yeah, or are there other options that might be more effective?
Right.
As the chief said, the actual limit, does that affect, how people are driving per se, as much as other maybe visual indicators or public outreach or different, like I said, the educational, the prevention part of it. To somehow, work through that process, maybe that's more effective, who knows?
Amy,
We'll find
when
out.
we have our next meeting in a couple months on this and we do a PowerPoint, you showed me some pretty comical props in neighborhoods from towns around the country that were ways, they didn't change the speed limit, but it would catch a driver's eye that, oh, I probably should go pretty slow. And I'll just leave it at that. There was some pretty interesting three-dimensional things.
Yeah, we look into it pretty heavily for work zones. So when our staff, and our crew members, and our fellow residents around the roadways, this type of awareness is even more important. It's one of the most dangerous things we do. So some of these visual aids let people know they're going through an area, be cautious of your speed, be cautious of your surroundings, which is what I showed you, some large visual aids to really get people's attention. I see them in the work zone, but I think they might be applicable for speed as well, and maybe more effective.
A couple more questions if I could.
Sure.
Just because some of, as I said, we get a lot of complaints and every resident has an idea or a solution how we could take care of that in their neighborhood. And two of the things that I hear often, and each of you could probably speak to this, one is always, well, I want speed bumps on my street.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can talk a little bit to the challenge of that.
Sure.
And then Chief, the other one we always hear is, well, why can't they just put one of those flashing signs in my neighborhood? Maybe you could talk to both the cost of that and the effectiveness once the sign is gone.
Right, so speed bumps, the two major challenges for speed bumps is that, number one, we live in New York. In New York, we get a fair amount of snow. I know this year doesn't track with that, it's been a little bit of a different year, but when you start to add items like that within the roadway, there's an added maintenance cost. There's a slow level of service, so every time somebody has to slow and maneuver around something like that, that's less time we're going down the road, not to mention damage, different things of that nature. Then the second part of a speed hump is actual physical damage to people's vehicles. Not being aware that they're there. When you add something physical that wasn't there before, you're going to affect traffic patterns in a physical way, which means essentially property damage to people's vehicles. So those are the two real things with implementing speed bumps in our communities. Those are the two major impacts that really don't make it particularly feasible.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the tools we have used is the portable speed signs, solar powered, LTE connected, so that we can raise people's awareness to what the limit is and what their speed is in the area. They're designed to be portable. In reality, we've found that once they're in place, they're difficult to dislodge. So we have a number of those that we are using in high traffic volume areas where we have identified that there was a speed issue. The trouble monetarily is that it's not just the initial purchase, it's the subscription fee that comes with maintaining those devices. So it's not feasible to build out a large network of those because then you got to maintain the subscription costs that come along with that on top of the implementation costs. But it is a tool that we do selectively.
do find that people slow down when they see it, of course, but then I would imagine when you do remove it somewhere else, they just go back to the old habits, I would think.
Yeah, even when it's there, like I said, there's kind of three categories of people. There's the people that willfully comply with the speed limit in the first place. There's the people who are unaware that are made aware by the sign. And there's people that are willfully disregarding it, and it doesn't matter if the sign's there or not. So, and again, those are the ones we're trying to target with enforcement. But if once it's out of sight, out of mind, it reverts.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dan?
No.
All right. Pat, Chief, thanks.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Pat, I think you're still up, right? This was, geez, I hate to tell you this, Jim.
Can't say anything?
The workshop is really not
No.
for public, whatever, but you and I'll talk after. All right? Grab
All right.
Maple Grove.
Maple Drive.
Maple Drive, Pat, you got it. I know it.
And I talked to the chief there 4 or 5 times.
Oh, I know. So Pat, the next one kind of jumped in yesterday because I think you just got some new information yesterday, so we're flexible. And since we had a couple of cancellations tonight, I said, hey, we're all here.
Yeah.
And shoot away. Highway Superintendent Pat Stevens present an update on the highway facility design.
Right, so we put it that way. There's one specific issue that I'd like some, not feedback from the board, but just have a quick discussion like we did on the other one. But first I'll give a quick overview. We're still working through the design. It's going quite well on the new facility. The sizing is complete. We're starting to get into some of the specifics of it so that we can really continue to narrow down what's needed, what shape it is, what size it is, and all that type of stuff. So we're starting to get into some of the nitty-gritty meetings about size of equipment within it, and all that type of fun stuff. So the design is going along really well. I would say we're well over 30% at this point, probably headed toward 50%. Our milestone for that is in March. So the design is going really well. The other thing that we have almost a month under our belt of is tours. We've had quite a few people come through for tours of the facility to check out basically the conditions that were shown in the PowerPoint much earlier this year about the condition of the structural aspects of our 54-year-old building. We've had several people come through. The feedback has been good. Quite a few questions about different things that the new building would bring, functionality. Overall, people are generally just surprised at the amount of equipment that it takes to maintain what we maintain. Just as we go from area to area to area, there's just more and more and more trucks. And people go, oh my gosh, why is there more trucks in this room? And a lot of times the answer is, well, there aren't any other rooms to put them in, that type of thing. So that's going well. We're very happy with the feedback we're getting on that. We wish we could get more. So anybody that is interested, definitely want them to come out and take a look so that they get some first-hand experience with the existing building. So those two efforts are going really well. The item we got some information on yesterday that kind of caused us to put this on there is one of the aspects of the new building layout and design. There's some utility relocation. There's 2 cell towers on the site, and they each have different forms of communication, power, and fiber optic lines going to them. As we go through that, there's easements from the companies on them that go across the property. We need to make sure that those are revised and accurate so that they don't conflict with the new building. As a part of that, we've reached out to a company to get an abstract of the property. The property's been in our possession for quite some time. There's been a lot of different agreements that have to do with those cell towers, so we want to make sure that we have them all consolidated in one place and an accurate abstract. Through that abstract, we found that there's a small area, about 70 by 60, located along Publishers Parkway that doesn't appear in certain descriptions. So the question has kind of been posed to us, this isn't where your building is. This is way off in one corner of the lot. Do you want us to spend a lot of time looking into this small portion that most likely is going to end up with your property, but we could spend hours and hours and hours researching it, or do you want to move forward with all the accurate information about the areas that actually impact your building? So that was kind of the topic that came to light, that I thought maybe a little bit of discussion with the board and their thoughts. So the concern with that would be, is somebody going to look at this 20 years down the road and say, hey, why didn't you go through every little corner and every aspect of this and make it, 100% instead of just looking at the other area? So we're going to be making that decision coming up. We're going to get the information we want on the rest of the easements and all that type of stuff. But whether or not to have our consultant spend a lot of time looking into a small piece of property like that that's located, adjacent to a road easement in the corner of the property versus in the middle where it would actually cause conflict with the building was something we thought maybe the board would want to discuss or ask questions about, or that type of thing. Right? Tom, where we were going with it?
Yeah, pretty much, and I don't know if Bill has been made aware of this. I know Bill's been helping.
He said we got it about 4 o'clock yesterday, so
Yeah.
he has. Yeah,
This
Bill's
is the first time hearing about it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a visual, Bill, from what, first of all, the title company that's helped us with the abstract, Charlie, they were the ones that helped us with the purchase of the 8 acres across the street. I think they did a pretty solid job for us. So we thought, well, maybe they can find this abstract, the history of the property, the meets and bounds, all that stuff, because we don't seem to have it. And so it's funny because just to give some perspective to this, that's about a 20-acre parcel, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Acres about 40,000 square feet. 20-acre parcel is 860,000 square feet. And the part that is kind of an oddball thing is, how much did you say?
70 by 60.
Yep.
It's 4,200.
4,200 square feet is just, looks like it just was done, and you'd have to see it visually. If I understood it correctly, at least the initial things that the rep that we're dealing with at Frontier said was, look, to do this abstract, it's gonna probably cost between, what, $900 and $1,500, which is a minor, it's a chunk of money, but for what we're trying to do,
That's a reason.
we need to get that. But Pat, didn't he initially say, if you want me to do a deep dive on this 70 by 60, that cost could go up exponentially?
Yeah, it could easily double.
Right.
It could be a significant change, which is why, we
Right.
thought maybe discussing it here would be good, because,
Not part of the adjustments or anything.
moving forward, it would be one way or the other. We never like to just spend money to spend money, so the significance of it is kind of in the eye of the beholder. And, as the town board, we, the input comes directly from there.
And like I said, Jenny, you haven't seen this, although I'm sure from your background in real estate, when you see it, it'll stick out like a sore thumb. But to me, it's a very small parcel. We're gonna have to deal with it eventually.
Yeah.
All right? I mean, we don't want 30 years from now when we're all
I
done.
don't think this is
But to have, first of all, that's not where we're digging. Not even close.
It's not even close, no. It's tucked in a corner that I don't know,
And it's just, to me, I didn't see the, a reason to spend more money when we really wanted the 20 acres.
We can discuss this more after, but I'm not.
I didn't think you would be, Charlie, but I try not to.
I know, no, it's good that it's brought up, it's good that it's checked out, and
So,
nothing was.
I didn't think it would, but that's why I figured since we had some extra time tonight, and I know you're moving somewhat quickly with the construction management firm Campus or the MRB to be ready to present, I think on February 9th, tentatively.
Correct, February 9th, yeah, we're working on our preliminary budget
Yeah.
and trying to come to the board with a full presentation on the financials of this, which we haven't gotten to yet. We've done a lot of stuff on the design and different things.
Right.
The next thing is the financial impacts, so we'll be here on the 9th to present those. Yeah, that's the next item.
I mean, from what you're saying, I don't think we should get hung up on it now, but take care of it at some point.
And when our attorney says, I'm not worried about that, and I know you wouldn't say that flippantly.
That's
Charlie.
correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Bill?
Especially having seen it,
Yeah.
It's at the end of the right of way
Yeah.
that I think at one point may have been set up so that they could put a turnaround in
Yeah.
for plowing and whatnot,
Yeah.
Right.
and it never occurred. So I don't.
It may have just been, it may have been added, and they forgot to even deed it, or,
Right.
yeah. It could be, we don't know if it was an easement, we don't, or intended as an easement, we don't know if it was intended, is it that portion being used now, Pat?
Yeah, there's a portion of some of the roadway that goes over, like you said, at the end of a road, or some
Okay.
other thing they're connecting.
So it's been used?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Even
I
more
think it's a
so-
description issue, because if you look at the, our GIS county mapping, it doesn't show that block separately, so it seems like a written description issue versus,
Exactly, yeah.
versus a physical, you know,
Paper
miss.
issue.
Yeah, 100%, but again, you can get into with one of our professional consultants, and they can start to spend a lot of time trying to sort something out, but there might not be any information on.
The worst thing we do is, we'll talk.
I have an idea. I know what you're gonna say as far as, there is a way to resolve this without paying a couple more $1,000 and having Frontier spending a lot of time on that.
Right.
That's not what we need that abstract, right, Bill? We need that abstract.
We need that
more for-
abstract so we can start
Right.
work on the site. and
Right.
Get resolved the easements that are on the site with the 2 cell towers.
Amen.
That's what's gotta get done.
So, okay, and I think we all are in agreement with that, so we'll move forward.
Appreciate the
We
feedback.
can either get out of here right now, or if anybody has any other questions for Pat about this, the tours, that are going on, or the whole kit and caboodle on this highway facility project, in advance of 2 weeks from tonight.
Right, touched on the stuff that I'm thinking about, but that doesn't mean that's what everybody else is thinking about, so I don't know anything about.
I don't think Bill will have any questions, because he's with you on all this.
Bill is, yep, yeah, he's there for all the meetings, and it's going really well, and it's great to have his input on things.
We'll have a recommendation on the 9th.
Patty and Jenny, do you have any,
I see all the, documents and everything, and as long as it's best, everybody.
Yeah.
I have a request.
I just want to thank you for bringing it to our attention, letting us know. And if anyone, I know that people are not able to watch this on television because of our challenges this evening, but it is live on it will be on our website. It's on right now on our, oh, great, okay. I just encourage people to get out and tour the highway garage.
That's
Absolutely.
because I was
Did
gonna
I
say,
steal
I
your
know,
line?
no, actually, no, you didn't, because I was gonna say, Bill, I know you've toured that place, you know it like the back of your hand, but Jenny, if you haven't gone through, his tour yet, please do.
I think we still gotta get Jenny down there,
As
we'll get her
we-
down there,
you know,
we'll take a look,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I've been there several times.
Oh, well, I know, you like to get into pump stations and get up to your
Oh, he likes
knees
the
and
sewer
waders
part.
and sewage, so I know you've been down there. I just thought, when you did the first tour for us, for the department heads back, as a kind of a test run for how you were gonna tour,
Yeah, you're the first ones, yeah.
and there was like 8 of us
Yep.
that were able to do it, and I'll tell you, that was a day where all the plows were inside. A picture doesn't do it justice. You have to walk through that to see how you have jammed everything into this facility that was built 50-plus years ago, when there was 12 employees, not 40, and when the trucks were, I don't know, they probably were smaller trucks, there was less trucks, these things. You can't get really, virtual tours are great and people are taking them. God, I hope that everybody, as many people can take that physical tour, because I think it just gives you a perspective of what you got going on.
It's a very good point.
Agree.
Yeah, the virtual tour really can't even compare to trying to hopscotch around all of those trucks to get from one area to the next.
Well, and Karen, and because I can see her because the door is off. Karen has been very helpful on, the virtual tour. I think we're over 1,000 people that have watched the 7-minute virtual tour. Pardon? Closing in on 2,000. And Karen gave, she, because now we're going to sit down and say, okay, well, what's our next way to promote and cajole people to do the virtual tour and come out? So we got to sit down and have a brainstorm. And Karen gave a summary email to all of us, when I say all, Pat and his staff, Kelly and Deb, and Ken and my auditor, and said, probably, we'd get a lot more attendance if people could bring their kids, but then she follows up, but I understand why you can't bring your kids, because it would be dangerous. That thing is so jam-packed that, you know, you gotta have adults making sure they're getting around those plow blades. They're not sharp like a razor, but they're metal and heavy,
Oh,
and
they're huge.
you clip it, you know, with your head or your knee, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah. We would like to look into, you know, doing tours on a more regular basis, maybe monthly or something, but there'd have to be some different considerations, mainly just because, yeah, if you took off running through that place, you're likely to trip, fall,
Can
and
be
get
hurt.
hurt. Yeah.
We used to do an open house,
Yeah, townwide open houses.
townwide open house for all facilities in town. Highway department would have a tour through the garages and everything, people would go and the kids would get up on the equipment and stuff. We haven't done that in probably 4 years. But the building's gotten a little worse. I'd be a little reluctant to have kids walking around in the building.
Yeah.
No, but you can pull a truck
Yeah.
outside so they can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah, peek in the
no,
doors.
out like that would be great, but yeah, inside things are a little jammed and rusty.
Anything else? Hey, well, nice adaptability there, Karen. It's good teamwork. I don't even have to do the math. Thanks a lot for coming, everybody. That's that. Thanks.
Yes, do you need any documents on those cell towers? 'Cause I've got folders and those cell towers.
Do you?
And I got them now in town hall.
So I got them from Dolly.
Okay, all right, so she's probably got the best ones.
Backup.
Or I probably just have the backup letters. By the way, the county, they were just, you didn't even talk.
Yeah.
But I did.
Oh, I'm sure.
No, you didn't. Actually, I wanted to. This had to do with
The ones that are 7.
Oh, I know what it had to do.
Yeah. Brian, straightaways.
Where did that?
No. Chat, you want to look at something? Yeah, that's what I want.